I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Hey guys, if you like what I'm doing, click the Amazon banner at the top of the homepage on FascinationStreetPod.com and do all of your shopping through Amazon. Once you click on it and it takes you to Amazon, you can bookmark it or add it to your favorites and you won't have to go to my site each time. It helps me keep the show going, and again, thanks for listening. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with filmmaker Christopher Downie. In this episode, we talk about Chris growing up in Edinburgh, Scotland. We also talk about some of the films that sparked his curiosity and his creativity growing up. And then finally, we talk mostly about his film career, which includes several Kevin Smith-based short films, as well as his feature film biopic called Shooting Clerks, which is a biopic about the making of the film Clerks. For those of you listening who are going to San Diego Comicon this weekend, if you already have tickets to Comicon, congratulations. While you're in there, they are going to show this film, Shooting Clerks. So pay attention to this episode to find out what time and what room to be at so that you can watch this film with some of the principals and the filmmakers themselves. As always, thank you so much for listening. Tell a friend, write a review, tell 3 friends, write 4 reviews, whatever. So enjoy, folks. This is my interview with filmmaker Christopher Downie.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Christopher Downie. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Is it okay if I call you Chris, or do you prefer Christopher?
Chris is fine, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so Chris, I believe that you are in Edinburgh, Scotland. Is that right?
Well, I started out in Edinburgh. I was born there, and I lived the first 28 years of my life there. But I actually moved to St Andrews when I was 28, and I've been there ever since. A little village called Lookers.
Oh, what made you move?
Well, I had to move because I needed to do the second 2 years, because it came in 2-year blocks. So I was doing a Bachelor of Art degree at Abertay University in Dundee, which is quite close to where I live. It's about 15-20 minute drive away from where I live. So I had to move from Edinburgh to here to continue education, because I've done the first 2 years in Edinburgh at Edinburgh College, formerly Stevenson College. Yeah, pretty dull story. That's how I got here. But along the way, I met the woman who'd be my wife, the man who would become my best friend and my producer, and a tonload of other people as well that are responsible as much as I am for the movie and the success we've had with it thus far.
Very cool. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So you're growing up, I guess you were born in the mid-'80s, right? Like 85?
Yeah.
And so you're growing up in Edinburgh. And what is life like in Edinburgh, Scotland? First of all, everybody pronounces it wrong, right?
Yeah, you're pronouncing it correctly.
Yay, me.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I only really ever grew up in one place, so I can really only talk about growing up in one place.
Of course.
Obviously, I've seen depictions on TV and documentaries of what it's like to grow up in other places, but apart from like the atmosphere and the architecture, it's pretty much the same. You got differences, like minor differences, like we don't have certain, candy bars and soft drinks. But apart from that, we get everything that you guys get. We do everything you guys do, and we get in trouble for everything that you guys get in trouble for. It's basically the same, albeit with a different accent, and pale blue skin, because nobody gets the sun out here.
So you grew up playing soccer and getting into trouble and skateboarding and stuff like everybody else?
I wanted to skateboard, but I also wanted to keep the skin on my knees, so I never really embraced it. I didn't play football or soccer. I mean, I did, but I didn't want to. I just did it because some of my friends were doing it. I was never really into sports. It wasn't until later when I got into ice hockey, and that's pretty much the only sport that I enjoy. But it was mainly, the sort of standard thing, riding your bike, going on bike rides, playing in the yard, in the dirt, running around, hitting your friends in the back of the head with Nerf weapons, and the standard thing that kids did in the sort of. It was more the early 90s that I experienced that. because I was little in the 80s. I was about 5 years old when the 90s began, and it's just where my memory sort of kicks off. It's like that's where I sort of went online and started recording data. Prior to that, I don't really have many memories.
Sure, that makes sense. So, do all the boys really wear kilts?
They do it at special occasions if they can afford to have kilts. A lot of the time it's just black pants, a white shirt, and a threat from your mother: do not get your shirt or your pants dirty or I'll scalp you, as they say, which is just their way of saying that you'll get spanking. But it's a good Scottish word for everybody to learn. It's scalping. Of course, nobody gets scalped nowadays because it's politically incorrect, but it's definitely a thing that was threatened if you were going to mess up your nice clothes, as they called it.
Sure.
But yeah, we wear kilts. I've got 2 kilts hanging up in my closet. I can't wear them because I'm too fat now. But yeah, I've got a black kilt and a standard sort of, shortbread looking kilt with the sort of standard blue, green, red, obnoxious, horrible colours. I really need to get a family kilt with my family tartan on it.
Oh, you have a family tartan, a family crest?
Yeah, you're part of I'm going to use a word here that means something different in America. You're part of a clan, and it doesn't necessarily correlate with your name. So, like, for instance, your name might be McCallum, but you might be part of the clan Allen, just because, the ancient names, the older names like Allen and then Stuart and things like that, they have a direct tartan, whereas everybody else who came after that would just sort of join that clan and be sort of associated because they're cousins, second cousins, and that kind of thing. But it's like a family thing, and yeah, you do have a crest as well. So you got a crest for your family, you got a crest for your town, you got a crest for your city, you got a crest for your country, you got a crest for the EU, and no doubt we have a flag that we'll be planting on planets in the future. So everybody's got hundreds of flags at this point, especially the Scottish.
That's awesome. And everybody listening, that was clan with a C.
Yeah, it was clan with a C. Yeah, absolutely. We had the word first. It's an ancient word that just means like group, family group. You're part of this family, usually an extended family type deal, and usually led by if it's the Allen or the Stuarts or whatever. Usually they're like the patriarch of that clan. It's just a big family type thing. And violence too. Don't let me bury that. Think of it as like the mafia for Scottish people.
Oh, that helps. All right, thanks for that.
And of course, you get your nicer mafia families, I'm sure. But yeah, it was about survival. I'm talking ancient mafia, like proper Sicilian old school mafia, where you had to do this or you would die. I'm not talking about like the sort of Italian American modern mafia. This is just going to get me whacked talking about this, but
from scalped to whacked, the Chris Downie story.
No, scalped. You got to remember, scalped knee. Scalped is something else we did back in the day. That wasn't just in the Americas. Yeah, the Scots like to scalp people.
Oh, so then let's go back to the one where your mom was going to do that to you if you get your clothes dirty. How do you spell that word?
Scalp. I believe it's SKELP.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Personally, my mom never said it to me, and she always gave like a stink eye to any parent she overheard saying it. It's like, it's just ridiculous, threatening violence, especially in a public place. A decent person would do it in private. Of course, she didn't say that either. I have to clarify. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like. It was like being in the mafia. Now it's more like, I guess it's like the Hells Angels. The Hells Angels aren't what they used to be. It's more of a brand type thing, and there's a lot of sort of charity events type of thing. That's kind of what like being a part of a clan is now. It's just a historical thing, a family thing. Let's try not to remember, going into people's, straw huts and slitting their throats because they're a rival clan who, slept with your sister.
Yeah, let's move on from that for sure. So one more quick question about Scottish folklore. When you do wear a kilt, do you wear anything under it?
Well, yeah, if you're sensible, you will. If you're a nutter, then you won't. But a lot of people who don't think that they're, big tough guy. I'm wearing nothing under the kilt. But if you've ever felt what a kilt feels like the material, it's not akin to wire wool. It's like the sort of organic equivalent of wire wool, the type of stuff you use in the workshop when you're cleaning something with tons of oil or whatever on it.
Oh yeah, we call it steel wool here.
Steel wool. Yeah. It's like a sheep decided to grow its own variation of steel wool, and then you put it on and you get itchy legs, sweaty legs, especially if you're sitting down. So yeah, the longer the boxer shorts, the better. You can't really wear like Jordans, basketball shorts, and they'll be poking out or anything like that. But I tend to wear longer shorts. If you don't, it's really uncomfortable. You're going to get a rash on your bum. So
interesting. Well, thank you for clearing that up.
No problem at all.
So, Chris, what did you want to be when you were a little kid? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an artist when I was a kid. I wanted to draw cartoons and work for Walt Disney. Obviously, the company not the man. I'm not that old. He was very, very, very dead when I was growing up. But I loved Walt Disney, Don Bluth, big, huge fan of animated film, and I was lucky enough to be around when the Disney Renaissance kicked off. So I think that contributed to it, and I enjoyed to draw, and I still do. I still do draw, and I have actually worked as a freelance illustrator on occasion. So I guess the 5-year-old me would be happy, at least with that thing actually coming to fruition many years later on a small scale.
Very cool. What was your favorite Disney film? Like, what are some of the Disney and Bluth films that sort of, piqued your curiosity and piqued your creativity, I guess?
My favorite Disney film probably is still The Little Mermaid, which, growing up as a boy in a very close-minded world and an even more close-minded town, was not something that I could admit easily. I couldn't admit that I liked that because I'd get made fun of, derogatory words and, oh, you're a girl, as if it's an insult. But I absolutely adore The Little Mermaid. So much so that when we were at a theme park recently, we were at a coin drop machine and we were just winning little prizes for the kids, my wife and I, just for fun, because it's not worth the money. And there was a Little Mermaid keychain, and just out of nostalgia alone, I must have put in about $3 or $4 for this thing that must have cost about 25 cents. And I refused to put it on my keys because I don't want it to get damaged and fall apart. So that's how big of an influence that film was on me. I even used to subscribe to the magazine, which had like sort of games and comics and stuff like that in it. That was more based on the TV show. I've very much embraced it now, and if people ask now, obviously, like yourself, I'll just be like, Little Mermaid all the way. I love it. It's great. It has its flaws, morally and, as a film, but talking Don Bluth, very much The Land Before Time. That the film can destroy me. Even thinking about it right now, I'm just, oh God, it's so sad. Never seen the sequels though, and I don't want to because I hear they're not that great. I like The Land Before Time and obviously Don Bluth's American Tail, which is also quite sad in places.
Is that the one with Fievel?
Fievel, yeah.
The first Fievel movie?
Yeah, it's the first. I think there's 3 at this point, but remember when I was really young, I was more into Fievel Goes West, the second one, because cowboys seem more interesting than immigrants from Russia coming to America and the whatever period it is. But the older I got, the more interested I got in I was like, the first one's the best one. The first one is great. What was I thinking? Half a brain as a child. One film I still haven't seen, which I believe is Don Bluth, is The Secret of Nim, and I've heard nothing but good things. But I will get around to watching that. It's on my Netflix watch list.
It's actually my wife and I watched that within the last year. We watched that film just because I ran across it online. I was looking for a different Don Bluth film, but that one popped up. It was a combo. It was The Secret of Nim and Fern Gully. I think those were the 2 that were in the package. So I went ahead and got those, and then we watched them just because my wife had never seen them.
Yeah, I think I saw Fern Gully at the cinema, the theater, when I was a kid. I remember quite liking it.
Yeah, my son was born in '92, and I took him to see it in the theater as well when he was a small child. So, yeah, that movie holds a special little place. My favorite Don Bluth film, I believe it's Don Bluth, is A Troll in Central Park.
Yeah, that seems to be, as they say, the redheaded stepchild. Not a lot of people talk about it, do they?
Nobody that I talk to has ever even heard of it, but I love that movie so much.
I'm just I'm such a fan of his art style and the way he used to tell stories, because he doesn't really do much now. I know he's getting on in years, but the quality seemed to change in the early to mid-90s, and he sort of veered away from that, and it became sort of a bit more generic, which is a shame. But yeah, definitely up to that period, sort of 95, I think. I think it was Anastasia was one of the last good ones, apparently. That was their attempt at sort of beating Disney to the punch with doing that story.
Right.
Even though I don't think Disney would do that story. But yeah, it certainly duped a lot of people into thinking it was a Disney film, so I think they made quite a lot of money with it.
Yeah, I think they did get over on everybody. Hey, what do you think about the movie Brave?
Brave plays exactly like your gran telling you a folk tale that is 300 years old. Because when I went to see it, I was like, this is weird and choppy, and it's odd how things sort of unfold, and then this happens, and then, it's the end. That's kind of how an old fable, like a 300-year-old Scottish fable, would play if you read it. It's odd, it's stilted, it's weird, it's almost badly written, but there's enough in there that you can really take a lot away from the experience. And I think possibly, I don't want to give Pixar too much credit, but I think that's what they were thinking. That was their mindset when they made that film, was to make it exactly like. Because they put a lot of research, even Disney in general, like the parent company. If you watch Moana, the amount of work they've put into that, right down to the tiniest detail, is astounding. And I think that was employed for Brave as well. Not my favourite of the Pixar films, funnily enough, but Scottish actors I really love. Billy Connolly, Kelly MacDonald, big fan of hers as Merida. And yeah, I have to say that Emma Thompson does an incredible Scottish accent for someone who is English. I'm always astounded at how good it is.
Nice. So you talked about Moana, and we're talking about Brave. So over here in the States, Moana kind of, I guess, caught a little bit of shit for being sort of offensive to some people. Was Brave offensive over there? Like, did it come across as, disrespectful or anything like that?
No, because that's what we're like.
Nice.
We're like that. I mean, it's a period piece, set in a fantasy world. That's not what we do. But if you look at what they wear, that's accurate to what we used to wear. It's a sort of mishmash, hodgepodge of various different, clothing styles of those eras. And then the attitudes of the characters are very, very Scottish. Like the mother sort of breaking character, because she's obviously meant to be regal. She's the queen. And then, she speaks in a very, soft way. And then when she's telling off both Merida and the triplets, she goes from saying, "Oh no, don't do that, dear. Hey, put that down. Put that down now, or I'll clipe you," sort of thing. And you get a nice switch, which is what a lot of mothers and fathers have, or just people in general, when they lose their temper in a very polite way. They change from soft to being quite broad Scottish, which I thought was quite good. But no, I don't remember there being any backlash, apart from people thinking it was weird. Just a sort of weird film, like woman turns into a bear, and it's a whole misunderstanding, and the kids turn into bears. And
so you're saying that the Scottish people don't turn into bears?
No, we tend not to. Well, especially older Scottish people will have you believe that, aye, that was possible. Things like that used to happen until the magic went away.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But they're just living, in sort of in this fantasy world that I like to live in sometimes as well.
No kidding.
But yeah, they, like the older generation, there's like a sliver of belief when they tell the stories. And sometimes you can hear an old Scottish tale and be like, I bet you that did come from somewhere. And then you've got all the misunderstandings, during the witch trials and things like that. Somebody helped another person, stop them from dying, so they must be a witch because I can't do that, sort of thing. So if that happened, then surely these like minor miracles and strange happenings took place. So I'd like to think that storyteller types, I would like to think that their faith is well placed and actually does relate to something that did happen back in the day. It's me sort of trying to romanticize it as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned the witch trials. Now, forgive me for not knowing my Scottish history, but was there witch trials in Scotland?
Oh, yeah. There's a specific place. If you're familiar with Edinburgh, there's Edinburgh Castle, which used to be a volcano. And the track that the lava took when it erupted created a gradient down the side of the mountain, or hill rather. And then, millions of years later, we built on top of the volcano. And then where the trail of lava had gone, we built the Royal Mile. So you've got the castle at the top, and you can walk from the castle at the top right down where the lava went, right down to Holyrood Palace, which is where the Queen stays when she's in Edinburgh. And you've got a mile between Edinburgh Castle and Holyrood Palace, and that was created with lava. Obviously, the lava didn't put the bricks down. We did that, millions of years later, but that's the sort of history of that. And right in the square, the front of Edinburgh Castle, that's where we used to kill people for being witches. And then there was another place down in Grassmarket, it was called. It was literally it still even looks like a market. There's taverns on one side and taverns on the other side. That's where regular people were killed. That's where they were hung. And there was a pub there, a bar called The Last Drop. And it's a double entendre because you would go in there, you'd get your last dram, your last drop of alcohol before you yourself went out and got your last drop.
Good Lord.
So it's the barbaric place. Barbaric but hateful sort of thing.
So was that back in like the 1690s like it was here, or was it a different time?
I'm going to be honest, I don't actually know. These are just things I remember from childhood and from tours that I took. But yeah, if you were a witch, you got executed in a different place, I believe. And it was done in front of Edinburgh Castle, and there's so many like ghostly tales and things like that witches walking around. I'll bore everybody and yourself with this story. There was a woman that murdered her entire family, mainly children. So she had like 8 children, which was not a lot back then. So she murdered her 8 children, and then she was put on trial, and it was a sort of open and shut case. And then they hung her. I believe they hung her there. So I think because it was like a kind of a high profile crime. So they murdered her. Sorry, they hung her there, and then they stuck her on a wheelbarrow. I believe it was by herself, but some of the variations of the story, she's lying on top of other bodies, and they take her body down the Royal Mile, and they've got cobblestones, the old school cobblestones that they have on the street,
right,
like they have in London on Portobello Road. They're taking her down there, and the bumping from the cobblestones resuscitates her and brings her back to life. And because the way the law was, because she had served out her punishment, which was to be hanged until she died, she was allowed to go free.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she served her time, right?
She died, and now she's alive again. So that's something of a legend, but also something that, in one way, shape, or form, it did happen, because it's like written in books, like history books, as opposed to just sort of hearsay. So we killed women who did even remotely kind things to people who were in pain. They were witches. Jealous people put them to death because they couldn't do it.
Well, that makes 100% sense. And just so everybody who's listening knows, I looked it up. The witch trials in Scotland were almost exactly 100 years before the witch trials in Massachusetts. So good on you, man. You guys beat us to the punch.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the overall thinking was, because you get the eras of panic and just fear, or if it was just the power of the church or what have you. But it's a tourist attraction, Edinburgh, but it's all like, oh, this is where we did some terrible stuff. Now pay me money.
Well, we have quite a bit of that over here as well. So, but once again, you beat us to the punch on that. So, when did you decide that you wanted to become a filmmaker?
I was 16 and I was going to college for art. I think it was like an introductory course, access course.
You're going to college at 16?
Yeah. It's you can leave school at 16 and you can go to college. I think you have to be 17 to go to university, which is like going to. So college is like community college, university is like, normal college in America. Yeah, so I was just fresh out of high school, and I was doing that because people said, oh, you're a good artist and you can do this and the next thing. So you should do that. And I did enjoy it. So I started this art course, and they were demanding too much of me, which means they were demanding some things that I was too lazy and young to achieve. So I was getting bored, and then I met my friend who I went to high school with, and he said he was doing a film course, and I literally said something akin to, "You can study to make film? You can do that in college?" And he said, "Well, yeah, of course." And then the next year, I enrolled in computer arts, not the computer arts. What was the second course? TV operations, which was misleading because it was very, very little of it was TV. you had TV in the second year. It was mainly film in the first year, and then you did some TV and more documentary work in the second year. And yeah, ever since I was a child, my second passion was watching VHS. I didn't know you could do that as a job, let alone study it. So back then, my hobby was drawing and possibly hoping to become an artist because I knew that was a thing, and watching movies, as many movies as I could get my hands on, as many movies as I could afford, and yeah, that became DVDs and laser discs, and I even collect like Betamax tapes now. It's kind of sad and insane. So that basically led me to college for the second time.
Now, I'm sure you don't remember because it was right around the year you were born, but back then, at least here in America, we had VHS and betas, and all the video stores would have, like VHS on one side and beta on the other, and a lot of movies, they would choose. They wouldn't do them both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what we had at my house was we had both the VHS and the beta, and then we just had a little switch that flipped it over to whichever one we were going to use. Do you have a beta player that works?
I do. Well, I've got two beta players. I've got one that is the size of a Buick,
right,
and that works. It's a little bit snowy sometimes, and it's huge, and I had to replace the belts on it. That one works. You get the sound, and you get a semblance of a picture. And I've got another one that the sound doesn't work at all for some reason. I don't know why, but the picture is absolutely immaculate. So I keep meaning to throw that one out, and then I'm like, oh, one day I'll be able to fix it. It's so much room to fix these two beta players. It's not even like a late in life beta player that is smaller. No, it's a big ass, huge, massive blooming. It looks like something you stick in your kitchen.
Now, if I remember correctly, the VHS players were smaller, but the tapes were bigger, and then beta, the players were bigger, but the tapes were smaller.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I think it had something to do with, the machine does more of the work, so the tapes can be smaller.
Right.
Whereas you've got two spools, two accessible, visible spools with I don't know what it was, to be honest, but I remember, pick, because some movies, some studios and distributors chose one over the other in the beginning. It was the same with not necessarily DVD and Laserdisc, but definitely with HD
and Blu-ray.
DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, this is deja vu all over again. That's another thing. If I find a title that I absolutely adore, like if it's Ghostbusters or Back to the Future or anything like that, if I find that on HD DVD, that has to be bought and put in the collection. I've gotten rid of lots and lots of stuff recently because it has to be something I'm dying to have. If it's something I'm like, hey, that's cool, it has to go because I'm running out of space with the children and the dogs and other crap I have in the house. But it still excites me to hold like a Betamax tape in my hand. Like it's like something I never really had. I think we rented two of them when I was a kid because we never really had a player. I think we borrowed a Betamax player, and then when we eventually got our own player, it was a second-hand VHS player, and all I had was recorded tapes. Tapes had recorded stuff off the TV, so it was nothing high quality or anything like that.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, we had a VHS player that I think my stepdad was renting to own from like a rent-a-center kind of a place, and he was paying $31 a month for it, but for 2 years. And so he paid like $750 for a VHS player, which is insane.
That is crazy.
That is so nuts. So when did you and how did you stumble upon the work of film director Kevin Smith?
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly.
I was 13 years old, or maybe a bit younger, and I was watching, I think it was like Film Night with Barry Norman, I think his name was, and he was a critic, a film reviewer of the time, and he was talking about Dogma, which was coming out, and you saw, several clips. The main clip I remember was Loki and Bartleby walking through the airport, talking about original sin and talking about the nun and how they like to corrupt people as a way of revenge against God. I remember being like, wow, this is insane. Like, this is a comedy about two angels who are just doing bad things, and they swear, and this. I need to find this film. I remember, I tracked it down. I was like, oh, there it is. I found it. I think my brother had rented it, and I took it from his room without him knowing, and I took it into my room, put it on the player, started watching it, and it was a bit sort of serious to begin with, and I was like, oh, this is. It's not, I don't remember this. I was like, okay, it's religious, and Yeah, the swearing and stuff. And I realised that I'd accidentally picked up stigmata, which is not even close to the same thing. Biblical word, sure, but it was not dogma. It's stigmata, and I was
That
like,
is
this
hilarious.
is not the film I wanted to watch. And it wasn't like messed up enough in a horror type way for me to want to watch it. It was kind of dull. But I eventually did get to watch it. A friend of mine, he would always buy X rentals as soon as they were available. As soon as the video stores were getting rid of their masses of X rentals, he'd just buy them for $10. He'd like a piece. He'd spend like all of his paper round money on it. He bought that, and we sat down to watch in his tiny little bedroom and his tiny little TV on his tiny little bed. And then he decided he hated it when it was finished. And that was my first experience with him hating Kevin Smith for absolutely no reason. But yeah, he hated it. He hated organised religion. I'm like, well, why did you want to watch this film? So I thought it'd be funny. So I said to him, well, I'll buy it off you then. I think I got it for half price that he'd paid for it. And he just bought it, so it was a bargain. And I took it home and watched it several times until it no longer worked. And yeah, that was the first film I saw. And then I find out that there are more movies with the Jay and Silent Bob character, and that sort of intrigued me. You've got this overarching connection. These movies aren't sequels, but they're set in the same universe, which is something that hadn't really been done since the Universal monsters in the 30s and 40s. And I thought, wow, that's great. And I wasn't even aware of that being a shared universe. So I feel he pioneered that, the modern version of that, years before. Obviously, Marvel and DC tried to do it, of course. But before Marvel did it well, I think Kevin did it really well as well. And I just sort of started seeking out all the other movies. I recorded Chasing Amy off the TV, and I had another stigmata moment with that. I was like, yeah, this is an enjoyable movie. And yeah, sure, it said Kevin Smith at the beginning, but this doesn't feel anything like Dogma. And where's Jay and Silent Bob? And of course, Jay and Silent Bob don't turn up till about an hour and change into the movie. And I was starting to doubt my sanity, and then they turn up, and I was like, all right, okay, I see the connection, right? Oh, good. And then years later, of course, I learned to appreciate that movie on another level, just because it's, a precursor to the bromantic comedy. Of course, it's not really bromantic because he actually genuinely is in love with the Ben Affleck character, but I loved that movie then, and I love it even more now. It was Clerks was the last one that I saw. I didn't love it when I saw it. I think because it was so rough compared to all the other ones. The other movies were all studio films. Even Chasing Amy was still financed by Miramax. I mean, they didn't have a lot of money, but it was financed by Miramax and starred actors that went on to become, huge stars. So when I finally did see that, I was like, oh, yeah, I get it, sort of thing, but I didn't love it. And I kept watching it because I want to see that bit again and I want to watch this, and really grew to love it. And it still is in my top 3 favourite films of all time. I would say top 3 because I wouldn't pick one of these 3 movies to be number 1, so they're all my number 1. I'll just say top 3, top 1. Oh, I remember thinking when I saw it the first time and then grew to love it, that it felt like a movie that MTV would have shown in the early days, and you'd be up watching God knows what, Beavis and Butthead, and then this film would come on and you just sit and watch it and accidentally experience it. And I think that was another reason why I loved it. And of course, Kevin's very much in that movie quite a lot as Silent Bob, and it's very much in his own words, it's his opinion, because that's the job he did, and those people actually existed, and he changed the names out a bit and then created some really weird characters, and boom, the rest is sort of history for him. And of course that was the beginning for me with Clerks.
So at what point did you decide that what you wanted to do was make a documentary about the movie Clerks?
Well, it's not a documentary.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's a biopic. Documentary would be just, like a factual thing, sort of, interviewing everybody. There's already a fantastic documentary about the making of Clerks called The Snowball Effect, which you can get on the Clerks X DVD and the current Clerks Blu-ray. It's one of my favourite documentaries of all time, ironically enough. So that's one of my favourite documentaries of all time, which is, funnily enough, about the making of one of my favourite films of all time. Whereas Shooting Clerks is a dramatic and comedic retelling of the events that led up to Kevin realising he wanted to become a filmmaker, him deciding to make Clerks, and then him surviving the making of Clerks, and then everything that happened in and around the making of Clerks. So it's very much sort of Bohemian Rhapsody without the money.
Thank you for clarifying that it's not a documentary. So what it sounds like is that you made an actual movie about the making of a movie, but it's not a documentary. So that seems kind of a unique thing. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. What gave you the idea to do it in that way?
Yo, this dude named Kevin Smith, right? He was going nowhere fast. He couldn't take it anymore.
I feel I'm not who I should be.
Who should you be?
Not me. Not who I am right now. I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
So one day he just up and left his job at the convenience store and went to Canada.
You couldn't have picked somewhere further away.
I got no idea what I'm doing. I just know film school's where I need to be right now.
So there he meets a dude named Scott and a dude named Dave who are both sick of the same old shit that he is.
You know that bit in Empire when Han has to cut open the tauntaun?
Yeah.
The PETA people were pissed about that.
A couple of months go by and Kevin decides to make a movie in the same convenience store that he walked out of.
You mean like renting a video camera and shooting on the weekends type of thing?
No, I mean like renting a film camera and shooting an honest-to-God movie.
So he picks up sticks again and heads home with his new crew. Then he mixes his new crew with his old high school crew and he sets out to make this movie.
Let's rock this shit.
So what's it about?
It's a day in the life of kind of picture. In this case, a convenience store clerk.
Some of the stuff you got me saying, like snooch to the nooch. Yeah, it's like fucking baby talk.
I don't know, man. Doesn't sound like any movie I've ever seen.
Your dance wasn't in the script.
Yeah, but I'm the writer, motherfucker.
He's getting as much sleep as me.
Most days Kevin doesn't even have enough time to sleep before he's got to open the store. Hello, RST video.
Sheesh. Moves, I can't take this anymore. Keep saying the same shit over and over.
Well, I tend to work with, I'm a narrative guy. I love documentary, but I don't do documentaries. I mean, I've done one that was quite well received, but that was just because I happened to be working as an extra for the BBC. So I had an exciting sort of subject matter. I wouldn't really know where to start with a documentary. And I'd been working on narrative film, you know, dramas and comedies and horror and things like that. And I'd already made a couple of shorts about Kevin, which they sort of just happened by accident because they gained a little bit of traction when I put out a casting call for the first one, which was called Babylon Begins. It actually made its way from Edinburgh, all the way from Edinburgh to LA, where while they were doing the show, and I'm listening to the recording of the show while going home from work, they start talking about this casting call that's happening in Edinburgh, and they're making a film about Hollywood Babylon, the podcast that Kevin and Ralph Garman host about, well, Hollywood, obviously. So they hear about my casting call, which I'm already at that point thinking is a bad idea to make some sort of weird fan film about a podcast. And then I hear them laughing at the character descriptions, and I'm sort of thinking, well, I've really got to do it now. So that was sort of the beginning of the relationship with Kevin, and everybody attributed to Clerks. And I guess that's the only reason why, or one of the only reasons why we were allowed to make Shooting Clerks, was because we'd made all these shorts as proof of concept. So that film may have been the first, and still might be the only fan film based on a podcast. But after that, we did our first biopic, which was Get Greedo, and it's very rough. It took us a while to shoot, but that's about a day in the life of Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes. Well, Jason Mewes is trying to stay sober, and it's all about Kevin giving him enough distraction for the day so that he doesn't think about heroin. And the thing they're going to do that day is they're going to try and track down the Greedo doll, the Chase Greedo doll, that's worth double or triple the price of any other Star Wars doll in 1997, so they can send it to Walt Flanagan, who runs the Secret Stash, and of course went on to be one of the stars of Comic Book Man, and then he can flip it. And it's just sort of one of the things that gave him meaning for that day. And I remember hearing the story and thinking that would make a good film. And that was the first biopic we did. And we did a couple more after that, and sort of, I guess, earned the title of the Kevin Smith biopic guys. And we went on to just sort of throw our money into the ring and throw our gloves down and say, look, we're just going to do a feature now. We're just going to make a feature film, and we're going to make the impossible movie. And I tell you what, if you were to come to me and tell me everything that we would have to do, I probably wouldn't have done it, because it's taken 5 years to make, and it looks more expensive than it is, just because we've had some really talented people and a lot of charity from the stars of Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and we've got loads and loads of stars I never thought that we'd end up working with. And of course, in college, we were told, write what you can do. You can write a movie set in the Highlands of Scotland, whereas with warriors running around, chopping legs off in battle. You could do that. You just need a bit of money, but you could do that. But don't try and make a film in New Jersey in the 1990s, in Scotland, in the mid 2014, 2015 period, because that will be impossible. And you'll have to get people doing accents, and you'll have to match locations, and you'll have to build sets to make it look like America, and you'll have to change everything from light switches to plug sockets so that everything looks pucker or kosher as humanly possible. It's like Steven Spielberg says, he had it very much on the making of Jaws. You have to have an equal part of courage and stupidity. And luckily for me, I had a little bit more of the latter. And to be as stupid as I was, I just was like, I can keep plugging away. And of course, my love for Kevin and his work kept me going. And he would throw out a really nice compliment or an email every now and again, or we'd meet him. And that'd be all I'd need for the next 6 months. I forget your question, but I'm probably just answering.
You did. So where, and feel free to not answer this if you don't feel like it, but where does a young filmmaker in Scotland get the funds to make all of these short films and these biopics?
Well, the short films were entirely funded by Kevin. We put up an Indiegogo, I think it was 2013, we put up an Indiegogo after we'd made most of Get Greedo, and then I released a trailer and it went bananas, and people started commenting on it and saying how excited they were. And then Jason Mewes contacted me and said for me to get in contact with Jordan Monsanto, his wife, who runs Smodco. I thought I was going to get a cease and desist, but it turns out she actually had a message from Kevin saying that they'd very much like to have the finished film on Kevin's YouTube channel. I was like, absolutely. And that, again, like I was talking about, gave me the charge I needed to keep working on the film. But then we had all these other film ideas that we thought we would do as well. And we'd sort of build this little mini YouTube biopic universe. So we pitched the ideas and then put them up on Indiegogo and said, we'll ask for the least amount of money we could possibly ask for. So it's £1,000 and we'll make these 3-4 movies. And I went out the house and checked my phone about half an hour later, and we had all £1,000, and it was from one person, and it was Kevin. And he says, I've got this. I think that's all he said. I got this. So he financed all the shorts. We did Undercover Lover, Emo Kev 2. We did a really weird short film called Gooper, which was kind of a parody of Looper, based around a joke Kevin told. And that's primarily how we funded that. And we got a little bit of financing through Indiegogo when we did our first Indiegogo campaign for Shooting Clerks. But we didn't have any presence, so I think we made 7%. But it was pay or play, or whatever you would call it. You take whatever you can make. If you can raise $5, you get to keep the $5 sort of thing. So we got our 7%, and we're like, what are we going to do? And here's the stupidity thing. I was like, let's just start. We'll have to keep going if we just start. So we invested in new camera equipment, lights, additional set pieces, costumes. We contacted all the actors. We said, look, nobody's going to get paid on this movie. And if people do get paid, we'll have 1 day's worth of filming, and you'll be wearing, a plastic bag as a costume, and you'll be holding a broom. And your set will be more plastic bags. And they all agreed to do it. And yeah, we just sort of jumped in feet first. And over the years, I've just gotten lucky with investors here and there. Kevin met us in Manchester when he had a show doing Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, and then they showed the Super Groovy cartoon movie. We met him after the show, went up to the green room and had a chat about Waterworld, of all things, for about 10-15 minutes. I remember thinking, people are going to ask me what I talked to you about, and I'm going to have to tell them what we talked about, a movie that nobody seems to like and was considered one of the biggest bombs in Hollywood. But after that, he asked us what our time frame was and what role we wanted him to play, and we told him. And then he whispered something to someone, and they came back, and he just handed us like $1,500. I think it was the money they'd made on the merch. And that's a story I've sat on for a good few years. I didn't feel right sort of telling it, especially while we're in the throes of production and, suffering financially. And I remember I was so taken aback. I've still got the little bag it came in. You get the wrap things where you wrap like a $1,000 bundle in America. Well, here you get a bag that says, check off how much is in it. and then the money's inside sort of thing. So I kept that, and that's still on my office wall. So that plus some fantastic investors, that is how you make the movie. If you've got enough time and patience, and you're willing to wait for forever, then you can make the impossible movie.
How was this movie received?
Well, ever since day one, when we showed a rough as a bear's backside cut, it was well received, and I'm surprised. People from the Orlando Film Festival, which is where we showed our work in progress cut back in 2006, the people that put that on enjoyed it. They gave us an award, the Indie Spirit Award, which was an amazing honour. We went on a stage and everything. And we had Bob Hawke, the man who is responsible for Clerks, being seen by people at Sundance, and he's one of the only people that saw it when it went to the Angelica. And, he obviously was the man that spread the word. He's a sort of a god of film and independent film. He was there at the festival as well, because he had a documentary that he was the star of. It was called Film Hawk, and it was about him, and because he's sort of an unsung hero. So we watched his movie, he watched our movie, and then he had some wonderful things to say. We even had a meeting with him, which was an honour, and every time we're in town, we always meet up with him, and to get his opinion was key, because he wrote a review of Clerks when he saw it, when he's one of the only 15 people that was in the cinema. He wrote a really good review of Clerks, and there remains a big sort of influence on Kevin, obviously, because he kickstarted his career, but he's a close friend even to this day. So yeah, I don't want to jinx it, because when it goes wide, and by wide I mean like VOD and DVD and Blu-ray, and when we tour it, the opinion might change. I don't know. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of interested to see how people will see it when they're not watching it in a theatre, but people seem to really love it. And to answer probably the next question, we made Kevin cry, we made Kevin laugh, and he gave a very fantastic review on Comic Book Men, the episode that we were on, the first episode of the mid-season break of season 7, and he just breaks down at certain moments trying to talk about the film, and to get his review was wonderful. And to get Walt Flanagan's review and Brian Johnson's review, funnily enough, I was interested in hearing what they say, because they don't suffer fools or foolish things gladly. So when I heard that they thought the movie was fun, I was quite happy. So
now, I was watching the television program Comic Book Men, and in one of the later episodes, I guess you showed that film in Red Bank, right?
Atlantic Islands.
Oh, Atlantic Islands.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like, getting to show that film to the people that the film was about?
It was insane. It was crazy. On so many levels, because let me explain, like when we got our Airbnb, it was in Highlands where Kevin grew up. In fact, you walk around the street, I'm talking a block, and you could be at Kevin's house. You could be at Katz's, the convenience store where he used to go get comic books and things like that. We were living in Kevin Smith country, literally living on his street around the corner. So the day that we were going to show the movie to Kevin and Jay Muse and everybody, Brian O'Halloran and everybody that was coming down for that, and of course the Comic Book Men, was surreal, especially when our driver for the day was Grace Smith, Kevin's mum, who had adopted us.
Get out of here.
No, absolutely true. She is one of the funniest women. Like, Kevin tells like tons of stories, but he tells stories about his mum, and he tells a story about his dad. And his dad is, of course, almost the influence of Silent Bob. He was quite stoic. He wouldn't really talk. And when he did say something, it was usually worth listening. Kevin's mother is Kevin. She talks like Kevin. She's got Kevin's humour. And she's got an incredible knowledge of Jersey as well. So when we were driving to the premiere, she was telling us, oh, this is where Kevin did this there. Kevin did that there. And oh, this is where this happened. And this building burned down. Blooming this, that, and the next thing. And she's talking about drivers in front of her. And we're like, that's so surreal. She even said some of the lines that were in our script.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. She didn't know it, because she didn't know that we had thoroughly researched her, so that when that character talks, she has to talk like Grace Smith actually talks. And she asked us a question, and it was verbatim a line from our movie, and we started laughing. And she's like, what is it? And we're like, no, we're not making fun of you. We would not even think about doing that, Grandma Grace, which is what she insisted we call her. You say that in the movie. You'll see in half an hour's time, you'll see your character say that line. and guaranteed you'll get the joke sort of thing, but it's insane that you still say it, and it's wonderful. But we actually took a line that Kevin has been saying that you say for years, and we put it in the mouth of the actor, and she says, and now you're saying it for real. It's insane, and we're honoured that you said it to us. You asked us this question because it's something you ask family members. So we roll up and we get out in front of the Atlantic Cinema, or the Atlantic Twin Cinemas as it used to be called, and everybody's there. You know, we get the cast of Clerks and Shooting Clerks and friends, and obviously we've got fans that are there as well. And the crew of Comic Book Men are in and around, and we bump into Brian, Walter, and Ming and Mike, and you know, back and forward because we met them before as well. And we're quite friendly with the Clerks cast, so we're chatting away to them, and then everybody gets ushered in for the movie to start, and then a car pulls up, and Kevin gets out, and the crew come in for Comic Book Men. They're filming from behind as we come in, and we have a hug, and then he hugs my producer Ryan James, and he hugs my other producer Brett Murray, who's from Jersey.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's from Scotch Plains, and when he was 13, 14, he moved to Scotland.
How crazy.
And lived in the Highlands of Scotland. Still got the accent, so he was one of the first jobs he did when we were working on the shorts, he was our dialect coach.
Oh, very cool.
And made sure that everybody spoke with the right Jersey cadence. So he's there, and everybody gets a hug, and we bug Kevin with a couple of autographs because we've got some posters and all that we've brought, you know, thousands of miles across the ocean. And then we have a chat, and then we go in. We find our seats. I get a bottle of water handed to me, which I'm glad of because I drank the whole thing. My mouth turned into a desert. We watch it. It goes down as well as you could expect, you know, with the real people there. And we were speaking, I think prior to it, we were speaking to the crew of Comic Book Men. We're like, oh God, we wish we could see in the dark and see what his reaction is. Oh, like, don't worry about it. We've got like a low light camera. We're going to be filming him the whole time. You'll see what he thinks, you know, in the episode. I'm like, oh, fantastic. So the film ends and we go down to the front, and Kevin instantly goes out to the back. I think he told us that he's going to instantly go out to the foyer and speak to camera and just give a raw review of the movie because he wants like all the emotion and excitement and things like that. And we eventually did see that in the episode. And then we're talking and we're saying, oh, this movie wouldn't be possible without such and such. And, you know, thank you to the cast of Clerks. We're all standing. I think we're curled around the front of the screen. There's so many cast and crew members in attendance. And then Kevin comes in at the background and just sort of, I think he stood there with his hands in his pockets, just sort of watching us. I was like, and I think there's one other person that we need to get up here. And he looks at me like, me? I was like, well, yeah. So it's like, so I got everybody to applaud, and he came down, and we asked him a few bits and pieces, asked him what he thought, and he's like, I loved it, you know, to see this, to see that. And he hugged me. He must have hugged me about 3 or 4 times while he was talking and while he was leaving to open up the Q&A. And it wasn't very long. I think maybe 6 months we had to wait for the episode. But to hear the beautiful things he said, and to hear the really nice positive things that the Comic Book Men said, because their first time seeing it as well, was just something that'll stay with me forever. And if this is all I ever get in life, if this is as far as I go in the film industry, I'll have a lot of fantastic memories, due mainly in part from some kindness from some really kind people.
That's a very sweet story. Chris, is there any place where everybody can go to see any of these films we mentioned? We talked about the short films and of course, Shooting Clerks. Is there any place people can go to see these?
Well, you can see the shorts on our YouTube channel. It's just Aldreaky Media on YouTube. And you can just search Get Greedo, Babylon Begins, those types of things. And also, we'll be premiering the final cut, which is the version of the film that's going to go out in VOD eventually, and DVD, Blu-ray and all that. We'll be premiering that at the San Diego Comicon this year, aka next week.
No shit.
Yeah, in the next 2 weeks we'll have screened it at Comicon. We were there last year with a panel. We had an hour panel. This year we've got a slot to screen the film. It's on the Saturday, July 20th, 10 p.m. in room 5AB. That'll be the final version of the film. And if anybody's even seen the movie, no, you haven't. This is a completely different version of the movie. It's that version of the movie plus even more stuff. We haven't taken anything out. We've added stuff. We had people just come out of the woodwork after seeing it, just saying, like, well, I was in Clerks. Can I be in it? I was like, yeah, absolutely. You know, can I be in it? You know, so we had all these people that are related to Clerks I was about to spoil a cameo that we've not announced yet. We've got people that are related to New Jersey that are in it. We've got James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd I was a big fan of, and he's from Jersey, and he's a big Kevin Smith fan too, so I reached out to him very early and offered him a role in the movie. And luckily he will be in attendance at Comicon as well, because he's got his own panel. So yeah, that'll be the first place you can see us. And then later in the year we will be touring. We're calling it the three-legged tour, because we'll be doing the East Coast of America, the West Coast of America, and then we'll be doing a British tour as well. So we'll be doing Ireland, Scotland, and England, and hopefully Wales as well. And then after that, it will be available everywhere. We'll be releasing it on VOD and, of course, DVD, Blu-ray, and we've been approached by a company to do VHS as well. Special edition VHS will be available possibly next year, but we will be doing our theatrical release this year, which is 25 years of Clerks and Kevin Smith, and of course 50 years of Comic-Con, which is an honor to be going to Comic-Con. Of course, Kevin's the prince of Comic-Con, so they link up perfectly.
Wow, that's amazing, Chris.
Thank you.
That really is cool. Oh man, Chris, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me mainly on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, it'll just be under Shooting Clerks, so just search for us under Shooting Clerks, or www.facebook/Shooting Clerks. You can get me on Twitter at Uppie Downie, so that's UPPIEDOWNIE, and I'm on Instagram as The Real Uppie Downie, because somebody else who has got no pictures on their account has already taken Uppie Downie, which is irritating. So if you're listening at this very second, please give me that name, because it's playing havoc with my OCD.
Oh, I bet it is. Now, before I let you go, Chris, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about?
I do have movie 2 in the works.
What?
Our second movie, we have a script for that, and we're hoping to shoot that at the beginning of next year.
Is that going to be a Kevin Smith-related film as well?
Oh, no, it's not, actually.
Really?
No, it's completely different. It is a feminist vampire film set in Europe around 3 vampire brides who have to survive in a male-dominant world when their master is killed.
That is very unique.
Envision the 3 brides of Dracula. If Dracula was killed and they didn't die, what do they do? Because he brought them their food. He gave them a house to live in, Right. So what did they do? How did they survive, sort of thing? It's 3 very different women. And they have to deal with the sexism, and there's bigotry as well, because one of the characters is gay. They have to deal with all the human aspects of that, but also everything that goes with it as being a vampire, because it's a very male-driven world. The men sort of hold the power even in the vampire world, and it's called, if I've not even said the title already, it's called Widows of the Departed. Widows of the Departed.
I like that title too. That's a great concept. When is that likely to be completed and seen?
2049.
Oh, sweet. I'm going to buy a ticket right now. Hang on one second. I'm going to Fandango.
I couldn't say, honestly. I imagine it'll be quicker than the first movie, because it's not quite... it may sound tricky, but we don't have to fake things. It's Europe. Well, I live in Europe, so, you can go into a field in Scotland or London, or you could go to the actual location in Europe and film, and it's no real bother on your wallet. There's no real issue financially, so it probably comes together quickly. We've cast 2 of the 3 leads already. They happen to be actors we work with in Shooting Clerks. Stephanie Price, who played Lisa Spooner in Shooting Clerks, she's playing Renata. No, sorry, her name's not Renata anymore. We changed that. Her name is Ariana, and the other bride that we've cast has been played by an actor called Tony Benedetti Martin. She's got a smaller role in Shooting Clerks, but she did have a larger role in the film, but she had to be cut because we miscast her. That was our fault, essentially. But we're really excited about working with them on this, and Brett will be with me, my producer, and Ryan James, my other producer, is going to be stepping in as an actor, because that's what he wants to do. Just happens to be very good as a producer, and yeah, we'll be using a lot of faces that you'll have recognized when you finally see Shooting Clerks. There'll be a lot of carryover from that movie, and we'll be talking about it and doing some concept art at the end of our panel at Comicon, just to sort of get people interested, because we don't know what we're going to be doing to raise finances if we're going to go private or if we're going to do another Indiegogo. But it'll be different, that's all I can say. But it'll have the same amount of love and attention and fire in the belly that Shooting Clerks has.
Well, that's fantastic. So, once again, everybody, this has been Christopher Downie talking mostly about the film Shooting Clerks. And if you are in San Diego at Comicon this Saturday, July 20th, you might be able to actually see that film before anybody else. So if you're there in that area this Saturday, the 20th of July, do everything you can to find where this thing is going to be at. How can they get tickets to that, Chris?
Well, if you haven't got your Comic-Con tickets already, you're probably not going to be able to get.
Aha!
Because if you got your Comic-Con tickets, you can just come and see it. You just come to the line outside the room. So, like I said, 10 p.m., room 5AB. It's a decent sized room, so I'm pretty sure there'll be space. And if there's not, stand at the back. Give you a cushion, make it as comfortable as possible. Because if you want to see the movie, then we want to show you the movie. So we'll do whatever we can.
That is kick-ass. Everybody go to that room since you already have tickets, because you're all comic nerds. All right, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. And I know that we had some technical difficulties, and so thank you for bearing with me and helping me get this thing done. Sorry it took so long. But thank you so much again for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And I know that I speak for everybody listening when I say I'm super excited to see the film Shooting Clerks.
Well, thanks very much. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. You have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy. Laters.
As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD. On Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. For the next 3 months, everybody who rates and reviews the show and sends a screenshot to fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com will get a free surprise gift mailed to them. Every single one of you. So do it. Thanks, Streetwalkers. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence. Used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.